The day she walked back into my life, the espresso machine hissed like it knew her name. Steam bloomed, cups rattled, and the bell above the door rang once sharp, like a coin dropped on marble. I looked up from the till and saw a ghost in a camel coat, sunglasses tucked in her hair as if the sun followed her, even indoors. "Evan?" she said. It was the voice that narrated my 16-year-old mistakes. Same tilt, same softness that could turn a question into a dare. For a heartbeat, the room thinned. The cafe I'd built, the walnut counter, the fern we keep forgetting to water, the chalkboard crowded with names of farmers I actually know blurred, and I was back behind the old high school gym bleachers with a girl who smelled like wintergreen gum and absolutes. "Lila," I said, and my hands found the counter the way a sailor reaches for a rail. June steam fog clung to the machine. A line of regulars watched me do my easy morning theater. Grind, tamp, pull, call names, smile like the rent is paid and the world is simple. Across the room, my wife Hannah caught my eye and lifted a brow. It meant, "You okay?" It meant, "I'm here." Our son, Ben, 12 and newly taller by the week, was behind the pastry case, slipping extra sugar on someone's scone like a magician. This was my life. It hummed. It had a temperature, a ledger, a laugh track. Lila stepped closer. "I heard you own the plate," she said, taking in the Edison bulbs, the reclaimed wood tables, the photograph of the river in early fog I had taken on a morning too beautiful to waste. "I do," I said. "Welcome to Northbound." I slid a menu across. First ones on the house for old classmates who doubted me. She flinched a just visible fraction, then smiled. Lila could always turn a stumble into choreography. "I said you were a dreamer," she replied, "not a doubter." 16-year-old me would have argued. 42-year-old me wiped the steam wand and asked what she wanted to drink. "Whatever you recommend when you want to impress someone," she said, petty as perfume. I made her a cappuccino the way a person writes a letter he knows will be read out loud. Mick-foamed milk like paint, a neat rosetta where practice meets pride. I set it on the saucer and slid it to her. She didn't drink right away. She studied me like a realtor studies good bones. "Can we talk?" she asked. "Somewhere quieter." "I'm working," I said. I was. It was also a clean sentence to stand behind. "After," her voice lowered. "It's important." Hannah drifted by with 2 plates, kissed my shoulder like we keep promises in public, and said to Lila, "It will be noisy till noon. We run tasting flights after close if you want to come back." "Flights?" Lila asked. 4 small pours, different origins," Hannah said, cheerful and specific, the way she always is. "We talk notes, process, what farmers were paid." "The way you'd talk wine," I added, "except nobody pretends they taste the moon." Lila smiled, relieved to have a time. 6:30? 6:30, I said. When the lunch rush faded and the last laptop folded, we set up the flight. Ethiopia for the blueberries and sunlight. Guatemala for chocolate that isn't a candy bar. Sumatra for dark earth after rain. Our house blend because it tastes like mornings that work. I dimmed the lights and brought out small glasses. On the far wall, our founder's shelf sat under a brass picture light. 4 things from the road that built this room. A cracked mug from my first dish pit job. The handwritten lease Hannah and I signed, the day we both cried for different reasons. Ben's first paper coffee filter snowflake. And, in a black frame, the letter Lila left me at 18, written in hurries and italics. "You're kind, but you won't be enough. I need a real life." It had long since stopped being a wound. It had become a compass. At 6:30, Lila came back. Gone was the camel coat. She wore a black dress that pretended not to be expensive. She stood in the doorway like a weather event deciding which town to visit. Hannah and Ben had the good sense to make themselves scarce. Good sense is our family's second language. They packed pastries for morning, counted the day's tips, then left out the back with a wave and a joke about not drinking all the profits. As the door clicked, I was alone with the person who taught me my first words in the grammar of leaving. We sat, I poured, we sipped. "You did it," she said finally. "You actually did it." "You taught me something important," I said, and watched curiosity arm wrestle pride on her face. "I taught you what?" "How to lose with an open hand," I said, how to close it when I needed to. She laughed, the old belle, always with the metaphors. When we were kids, you looked at parking lots and said you could see rivers under the asphalt. I was wrong about that, I said. Rivers don't hide. They wait. She took a careful breath. I'm not going to drag this out, she said. I moved back last month. My firm transferred me. I've seen you around, in the paper, at the Saturday market. It's a lot seeing you like this. Like what? Like the man you said you'd be. Owning a place where people come to feel a little more like themselves. She touched the rim of her glass. I was wrong. About me? About everything that wasn't old enough yet to look like success, she said. Back then, a future looked like a guy with a car that roared and a job with a lanyard. You were sanding cutting boards at a flea market and promising me a cafe with floorboards that creaked in a friendly way. She looked up. I didn't believe creaking could pay rent. Sometimes it doesn't, I said. Sometimes the dishwasher eats a gasket and the week becomes a math problem you solve with sleep. I tilted my glass. But most days it pays enough to keep this room warm. She stared at the founder's shelf. Her eyes found the frame. Is that? It is, I said. You kept it. It kept me, I replied. Every time I thought the road was just potholes and future tense, I'd read it and feel. I searched for the right word and found honesty. I'd feel something in me refuse. Lila lowered her gaze. The steam from her cup lifted like a small weather report. I didn't come to apologize because I thought you needed it, she said. I came because I do. And because, she hesitated, because I walked past 2 Saturdays ago and saw your son wiping a table with a concentration that should be illegal. And your wife laughing with a customer about almond milk foam like joy lived where she stood. And I wondered if there was any version of this where I didn't step out of the picture too early. There it was, the errand disguised as confession. You mean, I said quietly, is there any version where you and I try again? She held my gaze like a person trying not to drown. Yes. I had known this was where we'd land. You don't invite your past to a tasting flight because you crave caffeine. You do it because you want to measure what you felt against what you built. I set my glass down. Lila, I said, and let the name sit like a polite guest. I am glad you came. I am grateful for every choice that got me here, including yours. I will also never be 20 again, and thank God for that. I'm not asking for 20, she said. I'm asking for coffee. You have coffee, I said, smiling. She shook her head. Evan, I'm being clumsy. I don't mean to intrude. I'm seeing you. Successful? I offered, not unkindly. Steady, she corrected, like a thing finished, turning into itself. Her voice dropped. My life looks good on the kind of paper you hand a stranger. It feels lonely in the kind of rooms where you hang your coat. I could have told her loneliness is a roommate who steals your spoons no matter how happy your house is. But I didn't. I could have told her marriage is less fireworks and more tea that stays warm because someone remembered the kettle. That Hannah kisses me with her eyes as well as her mouth, and that Ben's math homework is sometimes the best part of my day. I could have told her that memory is kind but truth is kinder. Instead, I stood. Come here, I said, and Lila followed me to the counter. I flipped the picture light on over the founder's shelf. The black frame held her letter, all curves and certainty. Next to it, our lease, the day we picked up the keys and found the old tile buried under 2 layers of depressing. Above the frame, Ben's filter snowflake, asymmetrical and perfect. When I was 27, I said, I was still bussing tables and saving tips in a jar with a label that read, Floor in Hannah's handwriting. Lila, I don't mind admitting it. I wanted someone to show up and say, you're enough. But the person who kept showing up was me. I tapped the glass. This letter? It was a better coach than anybody who ever loved me would have been. It dared me to build a life that never needed to ask your permission. She stared at it a long time. I hate that you make me want to be proud of the worst thing I did to you, she murmured. You don't have to be proud of it, I said. You can just let it be finished. Her mouth tugged sideways. Are you happy, Evan? I am, I said, in the way that means I get tired and complain about delivery windows, and still wake up wanting to unlock the door. And with her? She nodded toward the back door through which Hannah and Ben had vanished. Are you happy with her? She's the person I would build a room for, even if no one came, I said. She is also a human who leaves wet towels on chairs and steals my fries and knows exactly when to put a hand on the back of my neck when I'm about to let a customer ruin my day. I smiled. She's home, Lila nodded. I watched the calculation, the part of her that had come to fish for a crack, fold up its tackle. Tears gathered and steadied. I'm not trying to be a villain, she said. When you're young, you think the doors you close lead to rooms you can visit later. And then you wake up and realize some houses keep their keys. Sometimes, I said gently, you realize the house you were trying to re-enter became a school, and your seat was given to a kid who needed it more. The bell over the back door jingled. Hannah came in carrying a stack of clean rags. Ben followed, solemn and hungry, the way all boys are around 6:30. Hannah took in the scene, the shelf glowing like a chorus, Lila hovering like regret, and slid next to me with a smile that didn't apologize for itself. Hi, she said to Lila. I'm Hannah. I'm the one who keeps the budgets board. Lila laughed, wiped an eye with the corner of a napkin. You built a beautiful life, she said, voice ragged but polite. We built it with people, Hannah said, setting the rags down. She pointed to the Polaroid strung above the counter, a carpenter who brings us honey, a nurse who laughs loud at 7 a.m., the high school jazz trio that plays on rainy Saturdays. It's not fancy, it holds. Ben stepped forward with his particular brand of boy honesty. Do you want a cookie? He asked Lila. We have a lot, and I'm not allowed to eat 3. Lila looked at him, then at me, and for a second there was a brief, private world in which she tried on the shape of if. Then she took a deep breath and set it down like a cup no one needs to carry home. I should go, she said. Thank you both. I'll walk you out, I said. Outside, the street was blue with evening. The river 2 blocks over made its quiet noise, indifferent and kind. Lila paused at the curb, hands deep in her coat pockets the way we used to stand waiting for our bus. You didn't gloat, she said. I shrugged. It's hard to gloat when you remember how much your own life needed mercy. She laughed softly. I deserved worse. You deserved true sentences, I said. So did I. We're both getting them now. She nodded, stepped back, and then reached into her bag. She pulled out an envelope, aged at the corners. I found this cleaning out my mother's house, she said. It's the last picture of us. Prom, me in a dress that looked like a cake. You in a suit you kept worrying would split if you breathed. She pressed it into my hand. Keep it if it makes you kinder. Burn it if it doesn't. I'll keep it, I said, tucking it away. I like remembering that I was once foolish and hopeful in equal measure. She smiled. Be well, Evan. You too, I said. Be honest. After she left, I stood under the northbound sign and watched her go the way you watch a weather system cross a state line. When I came back in, Hannah was wiping down the bar. You okay? She asked, not like a person who doubts, but like a person who owns a flashlight. I am, I said. Thank you for everything. She looked like a page from the old book, Hannah said, sliding me a rag. You kept it for the footnotes, not the plot. Ben had already started resetting the chairs for morning. I told him he could go home with Hannah and I'd lock up. He squinted at me like I was an interesting species, and then hugged me hard. A move he's pretending to outgrow. See you at breakfast, he said, and added in a stage whisper. Mom said pancakes. Then I'll be early, I said. They left. I flicked off the picture light and the shelf went to sleep. I pulled the day's totals and put them in the safe. Not because money is sacred, but because what it buys is naps, field trips, a plumber who comes when you call. I poured myself one last small cup, the house blend, humble and right, and drank it standing under the sound of a café settling. I thought about 16-year-old me on the night Lila broke the news she was leaving. That me, in a borrowed car, idling outside a house with lights in 4 rooms, trying to believe that ambition could be currency. I thought about the first lease denial and how it felt like power roaring past my shoulders. I thought about the hotel job where I learned that coffee isn't just a beverage, it's a handshake with the morning. I thought about Hannah, different from the first hello no glitter, only gravity. About Ben, who still sometimes reaches for my hand when we cross streets and sometimes doesn't. And I thought about mercy, how my life owes more to the people who told me no than to the ones who said perhaps. How some doors are meant to be closed behind you so you can hear the room you're already in. On my way out, I adjusted a crooked frame near the restroom. Ben's second-grade drawing of our café, lopsided and truer than blueprints. Above the door, the bell waited for morning. Outside, the river kept its patient rhythm. The next day, I got to work early and taped a new card on the founder's shelf, under the lease and the snowflake, and the letter that used to hurt. We are the chances we take after someone leaves. When we opened at 7, the first customer was Mr. Ramirez, who hates small talk but loves scones. The second was a nurse who buys 2 coffees, and a third for a coworker she calls the tornado. The third was a college kid who says she tastes raspberries when she doesn't, and I love her for trying. Life walked in like it always does, hungry, ordinary, miraculous. Around 9, Hannah leaned on the counter and rested her head against my shoulder. "What did it feel like?" she asked, not looking at me, just letting the question live in the air where questions sometimes heal. "Like the espresso machine hissing a name I used to answer to," I said. "And then, like the bell over the door when you walked in." She laughed into my shirt. "Come home early," she whispered. "Ben wants to show you his science project, something about volcanoes and dish soap." "I'll bring the dish soap," I said. She kissed my cheek and moved to the register to help the next line that had somehow appeared while we were pretending time was ours. I tamped, pulled, wiped, poured. Outside, the day gathered itself. Inside, we fed it. The picture of Lila and me at prom sits in the office now, not framed, just there, face down under a paperweight, a small history I can visit or not. On good days, I think about mailing it to her with a postcard that says, "Thank you for the map I chose not to follow." On better days, I don't think about it at all. Every so often, someone will ask me how to build a life after being told you won't. I say, sweep floors like you own the building. Save money like it is a rumor you want to make true. Love the person who shows up when it's raining, not the one who texts when it's sunny. And if a ghost comes in on a Tuesday and asks for a cappuccino, make it perfect. Not because you owe the past sweetness, but because your hands are trained now, and pride belongs to the work, not the witness. At closing, I turn the sign to "See you tomorrow" and mean it. The rooms we choose to live in answer back. Some of them even smell like chocolate and rain.